I did a very relevant degree, which was medieval history. And while I was studying medieval history, I realised that I thought I'd like to be an actor. Auditioned for a play when I was in the States, got the role, and thought, I know, I want to be a director. And so that was in my third year at university. And from there, I just started knocking on the doors of the BBC. I was in Glasgow, so Radio Clyde. And they were going, what are you studying? And I'm going, medieval history, but I want to be a director, please. And so that I managed to get through the door of the BBC as a researcher, and was then taken to London to work on the director's training course as a researcher. And while there, I started directing lots of projects and films, and ended up at the BBC. And that took me into entertainment. Top of the Pops, I did Going Live with Philip and Sarah. I very much a BBC training. And then I was lucky enough to be spotted by Janet Street Porter, who took me out to do Dance Energy, which I did here, which I think it was still Limehouse then, wasn't it? So Dance Energy with Normski and the White Psych was here. So that was my first experience of Fountain. And from there, Sebastian Scott, Charlie and Wahid were doing the Word, moving to Fountain. And so I came here to do the Word. And from that came big award shows, MTV's, Nobel Peace Prize concert for years in Norway, starting up shows in Australia or South Africa or wherever. And so all starting here, really. Well, BBC really, but via Limehouse and Fountain, so yeah. I really enjoy working on the big music projects. When I was at the BBC, I really got a taste for that, and so coming to do, I remember when I was doing The Word, watching things like the smash hits Poll Winners Party on the BBC, and thinking, I really want to do, I'd love to do that, and tried quite hard for a long time to get into those projects. And then suddenly I found myself, that's where I was. So I mean, for 7 years I produced and directed Smash Hits Poll Winners Party at the BBC. And that was a show where we pitched up. There was a tiny production team. And it's from start to finish, so you're working on the whole setting of it, you're working with the lighting team, you're working with the camera team to make sure everything's in the right place. So I really enjoy that. I really enjoyed that. I like the big events, so MTV Awards or Nobel concerts, or I did a project in Circus Maximus with Quincy Jones, which was a combination of everybody from Ennio Morricone to Stevie Wonder, and those are different. Those are projects that are just amazing to be involved with. But then things like when I left the BBC and came to do The Word here, that was amazing. That was a completely different kind of world, to walk out of the BBC into the sort of beginning, not the beginning of independent television, but it was quite early on. It was a very different world. And we had some of the best rock and roll artists and best comedians and best characters ever on that programme. And so that was good fun because it was just an exciting project. But I also really like doing, one-off projects that are, I remember we did I don't know if you remember this, but we did a Graham Norton pilot here before Graham was doing any of his stuff, So that's so funny, you kind of think, oh my God, that was quite a long time ago as well. So it doesn't have to be big, but I do like to be involved in the creative process of making that programme. That's one of the things I enjoy most of all. I think of a place as a sort of creative bubble rather than size, rigging points, cables. I don't think of that side of things. The thing that I've always enjoyed about this particular place, be it Limehouse, now Fountain, is that there's a really collegiate sense when you come into this building, that there's a whole sense of everybody wants to work together to get it right, to do the best for every project that's coming through that door. So every time I walk through the door, I think to myself, I know it's going to be a success, because the team that are coming in and the team that are already here will go out of their way to make it work. And so for me, what it means, much more than size and structure and whatever else, is that I know we're going to have a really good time making a really good show. And so that's genuinely what it means to me. And somebody else can worry about the size and the cables, because I don't worry about that side of it. I think the first time I came here was probably for Dance Energy, because Dance Energy for me preceded the word. And I was very nervous. Dave Fader was working here, I think, and he was my camera supervisor, I think, at that time. And I had a floor plan to kind of work for the planning meeting, and I'd been working at home with it on the floor, and I had a little puppy dog called Butch, who managed to walk in and put his footprints all over the floor plan. So the first time I walked in the building, I felt really embarrassed, because I had a floor plan to talk about where I wanted the cameras, and it had dog prints all over the floor plan. But it didn't matter. Everybody was lovely. It worked out really well. So that was really the first time that I came here. Was for Dance Energy, and being looked after by Mr. Dave Fader at that point. But the word was really, I mean, it really gathered together great musical talent. I mean, the Tube had done that as well, but the word was anarchic, and I worked on the word before it became eat your own whatever. It was all about. It was quite shocking at times, but it wasn't Snog Your Granny. It was really interesting. It was Amanda de Cadenet. It was Danny Bear, obviously Terry, Mark Lamar, and Katie Parkrick, and we would put boxing rings into the middle of it and have, you know, that would be in the middle of the audience. I can't even remember why we had a boxing ring now, but we had a boxing ring. You would have Nirvana and Rage Against the Machine and some of the greatest rap acts on Vogue and all kinds of really fantastic music policy. And of course the music at that point was booked by Jo Whiley, and I remember Jo had India, who now must be 25 years old. Jo's little girl would often be in the studio with headphones or whatever, and Jo booked just the best music for the show. So it was an incredible experience, and it wasn't anaesthetised like Top of the Pops, which I also loved, and I did that show as well, and I loved Top of the Pops, but the word was fresh and exciting, and you really didn't know what was going to be happening, and it was the most incredible experience to do it. I loved it. I think I did it for 2 series, and then I thought, time to leave while you're ahead, and I just loved it to bits. It was the most incredible time. I was pretty fresh out of the BBC at that point. And I wasn't particularly familiar with Nirvana. I mean, it was the only performance they did, I think, on television in the UK. And my memory is that I came trotting down the stairs, and we were only in one studio. We were only in Studio 1, is it? The gallery, is that Studio B? So we were only in Studio B, so half the size of the X Factor. And we had 3 music stages and an interview stage. And I came downstairs to meet the band production management, and their kit was filling the whole of the studio. Every single space was taken up with Nirvana kit. And I had to explain to their very large tour manager that they needed to put all of their kit onto one of our tiny stages. And they weren't quite convinced that they could do it, but they did do it. And the band were amazing, but my memory is that, in fact, because it was a live show, we had time issues, and I think that they got cut off really, really quickly, actually. I mean, obviously it's been shown a million times again, and it was repeated and whatever, but yeah, when Kurt stood up and professed that Courtney was the most fabulous in the world, we were all like, okay, just get on with the music now, please. But of course they were all playing live. That was the other brilliant thing about it. You had no way, you couldn't just hit a button and the track would come on. They were playing live. So they took their time. They said what they wanted, and he certainly said what he wanted. And then they gave a fantastic performance. But I don't know, I remember as well with speaking of performing live, the Manic Street Preachers rehearsed a particular number all day long. We had it, we were scripted, it was all done, and live on air they went into a completely different and slightly profane song, and we were all sitting in the gallery looking at each other going, but we just did it, carried on, finished, and it's pre the days of social media, so I don't even think people noticed. And nowadays, if that happened, it would be all over the place, it would be everywhere, but then it just went out and it was gone. So that was a bit of a shocker. Amongst many memorable moments on the word, well, there was L7. Well, I really got into, the cameras were changing just when I was training at the BBC. cameras were getting lighter. And so I very much went down the road of using the handheld camera to give energy, and it really worked on the word. So that was particularly working with Phil, and we would do lots of interesting moves and things that hadn't really been done before because you didn't have the kind of equipment that you could. Everything's so light now. When I'm looking at them filming the inserts for the X Factor, the cameras are light and tiny, but then they were heavy. So we did a lot of sort of starting with a guitar and whipping to a bass or whatever it was, and it was very much timed and done for the show, and it was brilliant. I loved it. And there was one particular shot that I think was going from the lead singer to the bass player or the guitarist, I can't quite remember, and as the camera whipped and moved closer to her, I realised that her trousers were off and that she had nothing on, and it was perfectly clear everywhere to see. So I think at that point it's like, pull the camera. I can't even remember properly now, but I have seen it a few times on, you know, worst and best moments on television, and I look at it and go, that was live television for you. And I mean, it was totally unexpected, as you can imagine. I feel so lucky to actually be back here. I mean, I'm really so sad that Fountain is going. I genuinely am gutted, and I think probably everybody in the industry feels the same way. And so it's such a thrill to be here for these last weeks. I got a call late in the summer just saying, you know, would you be interested in doing the X Factor? And I think I was up a mountain in Switzerland at the time, and I was like, I don't think I'm available to do the show, but yes, I'd be interested, but I can't do all the shows. But Richard Holloway, Sid, they all chatted about it and decided they'd love to have me for the time I could do. So I'm just so lucky to be here at the moment to do the show, which I'm loving, I have to say. It's I wasn't sure what to expect, but I've genuinely loved it. I mean, and to be back here doing it as well is fantastic. But what a great show! It's a great show for this building because it has such ambition, and it looks incredible. So you know, so I'm very lucky to have come back in your last few weeks. I suppose it all comes back to the feeling of warmth and happiness that actually genuinely I feel when I come here. And I couldn't possibly do this without mentioning Chris Cooper, who when I first worked here, and I always like my gallery cold, but when I first worked here, you couldn't turn the temperature down in the gallery. Chris would have to go upstairs, go out on the roof and do something. I never knew what it was he did, but every time I said, I'm too hot, please turn the temperature down, poor Chris, and I don't think I knew this for weeks and weeks, would have to go up the stairs, outside, on the roof, howling gale, and turn the temperature down. And in many ways that sums up this place. People will go the extra mile, and I genuinely feel upset thinking about it closing, because it's brought together great people, and I will miss the place.